Hello and good afternoon to everybody on this call. I'm Dara Fitzgerald. I'm the Executive Director of the Fulbright Commission in Ireland, and I'm joined by some of my team members and also from Professor Helen French from RCSI. So it's very happy to speak to everybody today about the Fulbright Awards, and in particular, we're going to focus on awards that are aimed at the health, or science, or technology, and to some extent business sector. So people who are interested in those particular areas hopefully will find some detail and some guidance for the types of awards that they may apply for. Today really is going to be a discussion of the program, of the awards, some specific awards, some feedback from Helen French, who is a Fulbright alum, and then a question and answer session at the end. So please consider any of the questions that you want to add to the Q&A, and we will deal with them when we come to the Q&A section. Thank you. So a small bit about the program. The Fulbright program was set up in 1946, and it was set up really as a reaction to the Second World War and the view that people did terrible things to people because they viewed them not as people but as others, or as people who weren't at all related. So Senator Fulbright, in viewing that, and had been an exchange scholar himself, and took the view that the best approach to change the view of being other to being the same and understanding parts and aspects about a country and the people was actually go over on exchange programs. And he's decided that education would be the best conduit for that. He expected, I think, around 8 countries to join, and then by 2022, we've have upwards to 180 countries in the program, so it's been very successful. Ireland joined the program in 1957, and we became the commission that we are now in 1991. So what is Fulbright about? Well, it's exchange between Ireland and the US, and US and Ireland. So it's going in both directions. Today, we're specifically talking about exchanges from Ireland to the United States. But the program is open to students, and students are those who are on a postgraduate, whether it's going to do a postgraduate, doing a postgraduate at this time, but haven't received a PhD. A scholar then will have a PhD and onwards. We will support professionals as well, who professionals would have 5 years relevant professional experience in the area that they're applying to the program on. And we are looking for, and we're very open to, applicants from all disciplines. And we will discuss the all discipline award shortly. But on a Fulbright, you can engage in research, you can go to study, you can teach or lecture, all of those. And to some extent for professionals and scholars, you can do aspects of research and lecturing combined. And all of this obviously going from Ireland to the United States. Fulbright is very different from many other programs. It is an experience of a lifetime. It can last a lifetime. We have many alumni who are still engaged with the program, alumni who went to the United States in the 60s and continue to engage with the program. So we have a very vibrant population. We have a Fulbright family. And that's something that most Fulbrighters will talk about, is the experience is not just related to the work that you're doing, but the experience is much more than that. It's about the engagement with your peers, with your colleagues in the United States and back in Ireland as well. It is also quite a prestigious program. There is a lot of recognition that comes with it. That recognition is also very widespread. So you are really joining a family of global peers who will be happy to engage with you from the moment you apply to the moment you decide that you're not going to engage with Fulbright anymore. The latter is very much a lifelong engagement. So people do step in and step out of the program and their engagement, but you're always welcome. What do the awards provide? Well, there's obviously a monetary grant. There is visa administration going to the United States. There is accident and emergency insurance, a significant amount of cultural and professional programming, and that includes networking and meeting with your peers and colleagues. And also, even if you have some experience going to the United States, there's a lot that can be learned, and the programming aspects of that will help to make you better, I suppose, get the most value from your experience in the United States There is obviously the ongoing connection to the Commission, to the program in the United States, to the program in Ireland, and also to your peers in the Fulbright alum network. Some of the people who've gone before you. Today, then, we're going to specifically talk about Fulbright Irish Awards in health, science, technology. And I will say that many of the other awards have potential for a lot of the people on this call to consider applying. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Fulbright All Discipline Award, which is open to students, scholars, and professional awards. And it really does what it says in the tin. It's very much for all disciplines. We will speak a little bit about the HRB Health Impact Award. We'll also talk about the Fulbright Tech Impact Award, and we will have a little discussion then about an associated award in Florida Polytechnic University. Now, we've also added the Fulbright EPA Award, GSI, and Chagas Awards, because that may be relevant to some of the people on the call or the people watching this playback of this video. Technology and science, obviously, it could be found in many of the different programs, and we would encourage you to particularly look at, consider where you might fit in. So talking then about the all disciplines, as I said, it is very much around any discipline. So we have people, judges, we have economists, we have biotech, we have artists, we have arts and humanities people across the board, and they can apply, and you can apply for under the all discipline program. They are open for research and study and lecturing. And we would say that in terms of the student awards, we would say that you would have to be, you can complete a PhD or a master's in the United States, or you can complete a portion of your postgraduate research program or a portion of that degree for your PhD or master's. The funding, I should stress, is only for the first year of research and study. People do often use it, though, as a stepping stone to leverage further funding. So Fulbright has significant support in terms of its name and the success that you've had doing that when you're seeking additional funding. And that may be funding in parallel to the Fulbright program, even in your first year. For scholars and professionals, as I said, professionals were people with 5 years relevant professional experience. Scholars will have a PhD. And as a comment, both the students and scholars are open to Irish citizens and to EU citizens who have been resident in the Republic for 5 years or more. And again, it's the same thing to undertake research or lecturing in the United States. Okay. So having said that, then I just going to move on to another particular award that might be of relevance for today, and this is the Fulbright HRB Health Impact Award. This award is very focused on the health space, which, as we would all know, can be quite broad in itself anyway. Applications from health professionals, senior health research administrators, health research managers, and researchers in the following fields are particularly welcomed by both Fulbright and the HRB. So if you work in research management in healthcare setting, if you're working in development and implementation of institutional health research strategies, if you work with public and patient involvement in health research, if you're involved with health services and health systems research, or the implementation research or health research policy, then please consider applying under this program. Again, there are wider applications that we can accept on that. I guess what we're really saying here that we're particularly interested in the particular areas we just discussed there. Again, you would need to be an Irish citizen or an EU citizen who has lived in the Republic for 5 years or more. You would have to be a holder of an honours bachelor degree or a master's degree from a recognised college. And again, if as a professional with 5 years professional experience, you should, in all cases, secure a letter of reference or acceptance or affiliation with a recognized US institution, whether that's a higher education institution or a research center. And this is something that we would ask you provide, or if you're a student, you may not completely know, you may have applied to a number of institutions, but again, to advise us in your application where you expect to go. And if you go through for interview, I think you would we would expect that you would have some additional information to provide on where you think you're finally going to end up as well. Just a key comment as well is that you cannot be a dual US Irish citizen. Sorry, a dual US and Irish citizen, hold a green card, or be currently living in the United States, or have significant extensive experience of studying or living in the United States. That latter part can be open to discussion, and if you really need to understand whether your previous experience in the United States might be a barrier to success, then please do contact the Commission. Sometimes people will have spent time in the East or West Coast, but if they consider then that they want to go and do something on the West Coast, that would very often be considered quite different, as we would all know that the East, West and Midwest can be very different experiences. But please do focus on the eligibilities when you're selecting your award. The Fulbright Tech Impact Award is an interesting one. The Irish Commission is the only one who have these globally, and the idea is that it's to engage with technology. So you don't have to be a technologist. You could be that you have identified partners in the United States who have a technology that you would be interested in examining or connecting with your own research, or it could be that you do have a technology and you want to bring that to partners in the United States. Again, this is a scholar and professional award, and you can go for 2 weeks up to 3 months. Other awards for students, you have to go for a minimum of 3 months to 12 months. For a scholar, you can go for a minimum of, for a scholar, you can go for 3 months to 12 months. As a student, you can go from 4 months to 12 months. But the Fulbright Tech Impact Award for scholars allows you to go for 2 weeks, minimum to a maximum of 3 months. We do also have some interesting associated awards. So under these awards, if you apply for this program, you will be well recognized as being a Fulbright applicant from Ireland. And on that basis, then, if you're accepted, you will be provided with other supports as well as your Fulbright support. You will be provided with other supports and an opportunity to impact on your spend and your experience over there. So again, we would say to look at our associated awards. There are 2 awards which we mentioned on at the University of Southern California and the Florida Polytechnic University Award. And this Florida Polytechnic University Award, I can say they're very, very eager to have some Irish Fulbright applicants going over. They have been working on their Fulbright program globally, and Ireland was the first partner that they'd set up on that program. So they're very aware and very interested in Irish Fulbrighters going to the university, Florida Polytechnic University. Taking a little step back then, just to advise that there are different categories which you spoke about, Irish Student Awards, Irish Scholar Awards, and the Irish Tech Impact Awards. There's an FLTA award, which is Irish Language Teachings. I don't think it's going to be relevant for this talk, but also the Fulbright Schumann Awards. They operate, and the application process is through the Fulbright Commission in Belgium. I believe they're going to open in December, so they're on a different timescale. We don't have the full detail yet, but for some of the people here might be interested on the basis that they're very much related to US to EU or EU to US, large-scale problems or policies associated with it. So if you feel that you don't have time or this isn't the right time for you to apply for the Fulbright Ireland Awards, you can also consider looking at the Fulbright Schumann Awards in December. We do have sponsored awards in different areas, and I've spoken about some of them on a previous slide, but certainly take a look at some of these different programs and understand whether you might actually fit under that. I would say box clever. Be aware, there's potentially an application space for many of the people on this call through a number of these sponsored awards. So again, consider what you might actually need to apply for or where your best fit might be. The application timeline, well, hopefully everybody knows that they are open now. They opened on the 31st of August and they're going to close on the 27th of October. In November, December, we will be carrying out technical reviews globally, and then you may be called for interview in February with offers then being made in March. So in terms of your planning, I think probably made the point anyways to please look at the information on our website and consider what programs that you might actually, or what awards that you might apply for. Find also where you want to go in the United States, and also please consider understanding what it means to be a Fulbrighter. You can, from this moment or from the 31st of August, actually, you could register your interest, or you could start your application. So eligibility, as we mentioned, is important. One aspect I should mention here is that you, under this program, and it's a global visa issue from the US, is that you must adhere to the 2-year home rule. So on that basis, that after you finish your Fulbright award, at some point you must come home for 2 years before you would be eligible for another longer term residency visa in the United States. And you cannot be a dual US-Irish citizen. You cannot be living in the United States at the time of application. And as I mentioned before, you cannot have recent extensive experience of studying in or living in the United States. Finding a host, this is very important. Actually, it's not necessarily always going for the name that you know, but it's understanding where the best fit is for you. We would often say that some of the best experiences are in places that you might not have heard about, or are less well understood, or certainly underrepresented in terms of Irish psyche. So we have many applicants who look to go to the Midwest and other areas that are less trodden. I can say that typically you'll be viewed as a bit of a rock star if you go to those other areas, because you were going to go as a Fulbrighter, and you're going to be an Irish Fulbrighter. So that has a lot of cachet associated with that, and for some of the best experiences come from that. We also do support the diversity of where you want to go. So we're very much pushing for people to experience the United States, maybe parts of the United States they know very little about or have seen very little about on the television. So please consider where you need to go. It should first make sense to you in any case, exactly where you want to go. And if it doesn't make sense to you, then you will struggle to explain it to us. Also, why you need to go and why you need to go at this particular time. These are things to consider. The application's requirement would be a personal information. You do provide some personal information, and you'll provide your CV. You're going to write a Fulbright statement. That's going to be very much about yourself and your connection with the Fulbright program, and why you need to do this and why you need to do it now. And please don't do that. Do not fill that in through the prism of the research or the work that you're going to do. We very much want to find out about you. Fulbright at its core is actually about people. To some extent, we're a little bit discipline agnostic. We're more focused on the people and the cultural experience and your engagement in the United States. So a Fulbright statement is very important, and it can take some time to write it. We would always advise to speak with some Fulbrighters themselves who've been through this process and understand how to do it. When you're writing your project statement, obviously a lot of people will be quite familiar with what's required there, but consider writing it in a way that speaks to experts, but also will speak to non-experts to explain. If you can explain it to the non-expert, well, then the general view is that you well understand the work that you want to do yourself. You will need 3 recommenders. We will need to see a copy of your passport. If you are an artist, we would need to see samples of your work. And where possible, provide a letter of affiliation with your host institution in the United States. Your research objectives, it's pretty standard, I guess, for your application for many other programs and awards, but is your work groundbreaking and why? The rationale in particular for why going to the United States, why not somewhere else? Why not across Europe or elsewhere? Identify the specific areas that you would concentrate on. If at all possible, be somewhat focused and therefore relatable and understandable. I understand that you may be applying for a broader master's program or PhD program that might be less focused, but again, discuss that as you need to. Explain your objectives and your expected results. I think that's probably fairly standard and easy for most people to do. But then coming beyond that, then what impact will this have on your discipline and your own research and your own career? Again, these are things we really want to know. Fulbright is a big platform. It's an excellent network, and we want to understand how you can use that, where you can bring your passion, how this can drive your career, what you can bring to the United States, what you can bring back from the United States, and how you're going to continue to interact with the United States. So Fulbright is a big platform, and it's a very useful platform, and we want to see people maximize the impact of going on a Fulbright and being a Fulbrighter. Your Fulbright statement I mentioned, it really is about you personally. Please do tell us about yourself. It's quite different from probably most applications that you will ever submit, but it is very much about yourself. I do sometimes say to people when they're going for interview that if you're a world-class tiddlywinks player, please tell us. So aspects of you as a personality allow us to understand how you will represent and who you will be in the United States and who you will be when you come back. Please do understand and look into the role and the benefits of being a Fulbrighter. Again, it doesn't have to be a study objective essay or your CV rehashed. It's very much about you, and this will, adherence to this in particular is one of the pathways to success in your Fulbright application. So as the hint says, in the Fulbright program, we invest in people. In terms of the process, then your application will go through a review process, which will go out to a number of experts in your field, and they will assess that, looking at the academic record and the project statement. For people maybe who are coming a little bit aside from a direct academic program, again, this is not a place to be fearful. Please put in all the detail and that will be assessed accordingly. There's also elements of your cultural engagement and any leadership that you have shown, or that an expectation of leadership as well. Please do speak about those items. They're all going to be part of your application. When it gets to interview point, well, then it flips around to some extent. So probably 60% of the scoring is around cultural engagement and leadership, and about the person and your engagement and your ability to use this opportunity and maximize it. And to some extent have an excellent experience. People do talk about a Fulbright as a transformative experience. So therefore, will you be able to have a transformative experience? Or at least will you be able to have an experience that you really generate some energy from, and you bring that energy along to the United States, and you bring it back to Ireland as well. These are all really important things. In terms of resources, there are many out there. We would say really talking to, if you're in an institution, talk to your campus, Fulbright campus ambassadors. There are some new changed ambassadors. So if you haven't looked recently, please do check on our website on the Fulbright ambassador page. Please look at our videos and testimonials, not just the how-to guides that we and the webinars that we record, but also look at the testimonials that previous Fulbrighters and alum have put up. Check through any events we might have had. You can look for supports. Obviously, if you're in a higher education institution, many of them will have significant knowledge of the Fulbright program, and you can obviously follow different associated groups on Twitter or elsewhere just to get some understanding. That very much will lead you to an understanding of what Fulbright is. I think most people will understand the research they want to do or the teaching they want to do, but I think a bigger part of that is the engagement for you and how that might work for you. I will say that I've heard from many times from many Fulbrighters to say that irrespective of whether they were funded or not, that they really benefited from the process. And the aspects that we discuss here about the personal statement, all that are things that you can use going forward in your career, that you can use for other applications that you may wish to do, including job applications. So it's an excellent opportunity to reassess and assess where you've come from and where you want to go to. We're very much about, for the last 7 to 8 years, been very focused on diversity and inclusion across a whole lot of elements, including what institutions you come from, where you are in your career, where you want to go in the United States. Again, all of these are very, very important, whether you come from a different types of community or where you might be underrepresented. Fulbright is very supportive of that. And I think we've been very successful over the last number of years to really be inclusive of as many eligible people as possible. I would say to any people coming from professional space that to some extent professionals are still underrepresented, and I would say that there is a positive bias across diversity. The diversity, if you represent diversity from your career path and from other aspects, and please tell us about that. If it's not obvious, we may not spot it. So please feel enabled that you can talk to us about your the diversity you might represent for cultural diversity, or if you're coming from where you might have a disability or in some way might have typically thought that you can't apply for something like Fulbright. You absolutely can. We're saying it and we keep saying it. So your next steps would be to reach out to your recommenders, select where you want to go and understand why you need to go there. As I've mentioned a number of times, to research to look at the Fulbright ethos and understand why that is something that's important to us. It has value. It's been funded by the US government and the Irish government because of that cultural exchange aspect to it, to create lifelong contacts, to create lifelong experiences. That's what lasts a lot longer than many of the other awards and programs that we've all applied for and been funded for previously. Talk to a Fulbrighter. I think they're probably the best resource, and we do have a Fulbrighter who's going to speak today, but I think really they're probably the best resource for you to understand what the Fulbright program is about and understand the non-standard parts of our application. And I say non-standard only in the sense that I'm talking about you talking about yourself. Any queries you would have, obviously forward them to awards@fulbright.ie. But I think if you have a query, please do check to see if that detail that you need is not already covered on this presentation or through our website, because there are a significant number of resources there, and you may find it's easier to digest that than sending in an email that might have a more limited response associated with it. So at that point, then, I think I've nicely got to the point where I want to introduce Professor Helen French from RCSI, and Helen completed her Fulbright journey not too many years ago, but I think it's great that Helen can come back and speak about our program and the ongoing impact of the program. A little bit of time has passed where Helen can also talk about the impact of being a Fulbrighter and where that has gone. So Helen, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you just tell me to forward slides, I'll do so.
Great. Thanks very much, Dara. And hopefully you can all hear me. If you can't, somebody can just let me know. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll kind of talk through, I guess, my own experience, and then I suppose the impact on my career. So next slide, please. So I'm a chartered physiotherapist. I worked in a clinical role for many years in acute hospital settings, and then I moved to RCSI after I had done a master's. I moved in 2004 to RCSI, and I was in a lecturing role there. And then I did a PhD completed in 2011 from a HRB fellowship, and I was promoted to senior lecturer in 2015. But really I was, I suppose this was at around 2015-16, I felt I was a little bit stuck because I wanted to progress my career, my research career, and I didn't really have any funding of my own. I had been involved in projects, but I hadn't got any funding of my own. And I think I just needed a bit of a shake-up. I just needed a little bit of freshness and just some kind of invigoration. And then I don't know how I even chanced upon Fulbright. I was aware of it from a couple of colleagues in the college. I've always had this kind of, I suppose, thing about the States. My brother lives there. I never really went there. After I left college, loads of my classmates did, and I never did that kind of, you know, living abroad, and I just felt I'd missed out. And so this popped in on my radar, and I just thought, God, this could be really just timing is right, that I'm kind of ready to do this. So I'll talk through then in the next slide, if you want to move on to the next slide, then how that progressed. So I actually did apply in 2015, the 15-16 awards, and I wasn't, or sorry, the 16-17 awards, and I wasn't successful at that time. And I think part of it was I was putting in too much in my application, actually. I was trying to cover bases for two different things that I wanted to be involved in. I had identified the institution, I had identified two experts in two slightly different areas, so they weren't terribly connected, and I suspect a reviewer probably thought this is all over the place. So so I took a step back then, and the next year I reapplied and I just focused on one of those areas. And I suppose the big thing that people often say is, you know, how do you connect with the host institution? And to some extent, I did cold call them or cold email them. I reached out to a person, I knew of them, I knew they were doing a lot in this space, and it was really around the use of biomechanics to understand kind of hip problems, and that was my area. I was very interested in hip conditions, so hip osteoarthritis and other related conditions, but really understanding the mechanics around it and how that could affect pathology and then affect rehab, really, of course, from my role as a physio. But actually it was funny when I reached out to this person that I realized we were actually connected, we were actually on a bigger group, and I didn't spot that beforehand, this group that was kind of being led by someone in the UK. So that was actually fantastic, and that was just pure coincidence, really. And then she ended up coming to the UK to meet her connection there, and I went over to the UK and I met her before when I was doing this application, and all of that really helped. And I think I was able to say that in the application. I was saying, look, there's already a connection there, we're part of an international group, and this was, I suppose, part of my selling point. And at the time, the Fulbright, the HRB Health Impact Award, I think was the first year of it, actually, and I applied for that. It just seemed like an obvious one to apply for, because my theme was certainly around health impact. And I chose a 3-month stint, and that was really because I was in an academic institution in a lecturing post, and effectively, you're kind of in your own job, I suppose, and I had to commit to my academic role in term time. So my plan was to go then for the summer of the 2018 summer period, and so 3 months was kind of where I landed there from practical terms. So next slide, please. So I went to Boston University, and I went like that summer 2018. So it was literally just before the cutoff. I think in September, you have to have completed it by the September, but Dara can correct me if that's wrong. And I was really interested in biomechanics and hip pathology. So I was going to a biomechanics lab at the university. And I suppose while I was there, I did get connections, and I got to visit other places. There was a big running biomechanics lab in Spalding University, a hospital which is linked with Harvard. And then there was an osteoarthritis group. Another kind of big area of my research was osteoarthritis, and they were also based at BU, and they had a really big osteoarthritis cohort study there, and I used to join their team meetings and really kind of understand what they were doing in their research. And I got to do some analysis of data from that study, and COVID has kind of delayed getting that over the line, but that's kind of still in process to be published. So, and then I suppose, last night I was looking at some of the pictures of my time there, and oh gosh, I just got some fantastic memories when I looked back at what I did. I think because I was going for 3 months, you really do make the most of it. I mean, a friend of mine who I met over there was there for a year, and she probably hadn't gone out and done things as much as I had, because I was really trying to make the most of the 3 months. And so, Boston is an amazing place to go to, and I just have such a grow for Boston since I've been there, and it was all about living there and living and not just going on holiday. I was there for 4th of July with the fireworks. I was have a bit of an obsession with the Kennedys, and I was visiting the Kennedy, the family home, and visiting the museum. I went off out of state. I went up to the mountains, to New Hampshire. I went, to the sea. You're so near everything. And really in Boston, Dara mentioned the programmed events, and they were fantastic, actually, because there's a lot of Fulbrighters in Boston, and I totally hear what Dara says about other kind of less known states. I mean, there's so many international Fulbrighters in Boston, which was fantastic. And 4 of us there at the bottom, you know, we kind of hung out a bit, and we went down there to Salem, which museum, you know, that was one of our day trips. But just, you know, really happy memories. I just had such a fabulous time there, and just looking at those pictures brought it all back for me yesterday. So if I was to give some tips on what my suggestion was, would definitely do your homework, because you know, people contact me now and they say, oh, I want to do research, and you have to think of it as more than a research grant. Exactly what Dara said about the whole cultural experience, and it's about you as the person. And do chat with other people who've been through it. And I chatted with people who I knew from RCSI had either done a student or scholar award, and they gave me some really good advice. And then I started to read blogs of people on their Fulbright experience, and I just started to understand it more, because I really didn't understand it when I was starting to apply. And then the obviously, as well as the Fulbright website, there's also the alumni website, and kind of understanding where they connect with the Fulbright Commission. And really, it's also about thinking about what Fulbright will do for you, but also what you will do for Fulbright and for your organization, because I think you have to think of yourself as an ambassador for your organization. That was certainly what it was in my mind when I was going out there and meeting with people. I was representing my organization, I was representing my country. And I still remember, Dara, when I did get to the interview and I was going in for the interview, and I remember you, Dara, saying, you know, about leadership, and like, this is really important, you know, kind of your, you know, you have to have this kind of, how do you see yourself as a leader? And that was certainly something that they kind of were asking me about. And I, you know, I really had to kind of, you know, have an insight on where I saw myself as a leader. And I think really when you're applying for it, I think it's about being genuine in your intentions. You know, why do you want to go there? You know, is it just, you know, if you just want to do research, you have to think beyond that. I mean, for me, it was about going there to the States, and very much the States rather than somewhere else. And I think that'll shine through in your application if it's genuine. And I hope that was part of why I got to the interview stage and then was successful, because I was hopefully being quite genuine and very down to earth in that application about why I wanted to go. So next slide, please. So then in terms of how it's affected my career, well, you know, it's kind of hard to know what impacts your career, because you have to kind of make things happen, right? Things don't just fall in your lap. And I suppose I've spent a lot of my time trying to make things happen. But certainly, I think when I look back on the last 4 years, and including there's a whole COVID pandemic in the middle of it, I've actually come so far in the 4 years. And yes, I'm sure Fulbright contributed to that. You know, there's lots of things that contributed to it. But certainly since then, there's been some key milestones in my career, and I'm going to attribute them to Fulbright, because certainly the kudos and the prestige associated with it is definitely not to be underestimated. So I came back anyway, and I was really, you know, all about trying to get my funding as a PI, as a principal investigator, and I applied for the HRB Investigator-Led Project Award in 2019, and I got one of those awards, which I was absolutely thrilled about, and that's ongoing now. And then I decided I'd apply for a definitive and feasibility award on a kind of similar-ish topic, and I was successful in that. And they were just 2 huge milestones for me in my career in terms of my independent research. And then I took on the Fulbright ambassador role in RCSI, which I've been doing since 2019. And again, I think that has been really important for my role in the college, on a kind of a college level, and my service role in the college, and my linkage with lots of people, Fulbrighters coming in, and lots of departments in the college, and so on. And I suppose then this year I was promoted to associate professor, and it's kind of confusing because my email signature doesn't change until the 1st of October. So people get emails from me and it still says I'm senior lecturer, but it officially kicks in. I mean, I am associate professor now, but it officially kicks in on my signature on the 1st of October. And really, you know, if I look back at that journey, I deliberately picked this graphic because I think really, you know, the Fulbright was there at the very beginning of that. So it's had a huge impact on my career. And it's just, you know, people say life-changing. It is. I just have amazing memories of it. And I'm always kind of looking to go back to Boston and relive some of those memories. So I just say apply for it, go for it, and just do it for the right reasons, and, you know, thoroughly enjoy it. So that's my insight into Fulbright. And I suppose I have to run off after this, but if there's any questions, I suppose they can pop them in the chat box and I can answer them before I have to run off.
Helen, thanks very much for that. You covered many aspects that I'd be delighted that you covered. In particular, first of all, that you applied, you weren't successful, you learned from that, and you reapplied, and that happens. It's a significant number of times people do learn from that. So there's always an opportunity, and there's no negative aspect of reapplying. To some extent, we certainly appreciate a reapplication, and people have taken the notes back and they've said, well, okay, well, what can I do better? The other part is to fully engage and use the time there, because it is a great time. It's not really like another trip you're going to do or a program that you're going to do. Most people will recognize you with a Fulbright, so they want to engage with you, and we tend to say yes to almost everything. And that leads to an excellent experience. Just on the other part, then, there can be impacts on career, it can be impacts on the learning and the experience that you've had, and you bring it back, and it continues to engage with you. So thanks again to Helen, and we very much appreciate your time at this stage. So I think we're just getting to the final stages now. We don't have too many questions in the Q&A chat.
Your presentation and Helen's presentation, Dara and Helen, were both so informative that's the reason there's not many questions, obviously. Sorry, just people asking about eligibility, which is always a very common question. You need to have an Irish passport at the time of application. If you have an Irish passport at the time of application, you are eligible. Alternatively, if you're an EU citizen who's been here 5 years or more, you're eligible. Otherwise, if you're not an EU passport holder, you're not eligible, unfortunately, but you may be eligible to apply to another commission. So say if you're a Chinese or a Nigerian citizen who's been resident in Ireland for 3 years, for example, you're not eligible for the Irish Commission just yet, but you may be eligible for the Nigerian Commission or the Chinese Commission or another commission.
Okay. And there was a question about, or people have asked about the availability of this webinar. Yes, we will upload this webinar to our YouTube channel at some point in the next day. So Paula, do you remember the actual address, or you just look up Fulbright Ireland?
Yes, it's literally just Fulbright Ireland, and you'll come across all the videos, and videos we did last year and earlier on in the year are also available. So you can hear other experts like Helen who've been through the process. So they're actually fantastic resources as well. I'd also encourage you to visit our frequently asked questions section of our website, just top right hand corner of our website. There's also fantastic resources available there as well.
Yeah. So I think we're going to finish up now. I'm just going to leave with 2 points. One is that please don't self-select out on the basis that, oh, I don't think Fulbright would support me. If there's an eligibility issue, there's probably nothing we can do about that. But beyond that, consider that you probably can find a reason. You shouldn't be finding reasons why you can't, but find reasons why you can. Because I imagine for most people on the call there, or who will watch this subsequently, there's a real opportunity to apply for a Fulbright program. I can't guarantee that you'll be accepted, but I can guarantee that you will get tremendous value from having gone through the process at the very least. If nothing else, you've been able to cold call or reach out to colleagues in the United States who will be very impressed, by the way, that you're applying for a Fulbright. So that in itself has already helped. It will help to open a door. So that leaves me to say thank you to the team, thank you to Helen, and best of luck. We hope to see you on the applications and on the flip side, hopefully at interview stage. And take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.